How are you doing today? Are you good?
Good. Yeah, thankfully it's really nice out, so that always boosts the mood.
Yeah, I was admiring the sun earlier. I was like, oh, I should actually go outside and leave my desk for a bit, but
Yeah.
yeah, so I guess we'll get started. And we start with just a quick background, your background, how you got into nutrition, what inspired you, and then we'll jump into the interview questions.
Perfect. So, my name is Limor. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist. I went to Penn State for undergrad and then followed along with LIU Post for a combined master's and almost like a 9-month internship. It's called a dietetic internship. And that was an amazing experience that really propelled me into my career and knowing that I wanted to pursue counseling for nutrition specifically. Um, and so in the internship, you get a lot of different experience. You're doing clinicals, you're doing food management. So you see all the spots of where nutrition really impacts health and how it can be at so many different levels, right? It's not just in a hospital setting, but really your day-to-day life. So that's what I do now. I counsel private clients so that each individualized person has a lifestyle that suits them, because nutrition is not a band-aid fix for everyone. Everyone really has different preferences, and for me personally, I grew up in a Mediterranean background, so I've always grown up with very whole natural foods, like from the ground up was my MO. And I really noticed that translates to realizing that nutrition is an act of self-love, and with food you can have better eye health, have better mental and physical health, and there's so many different dynamics that food plays into. So that's really how I got passionate about it, and I just love working with people.
Oh, that's incredible. And now you're located in New York, right?
Yes, I'm based in New York, and I'll do in-person and telehealth visits. So thankfully, everyone loves the telehealth visits as well, and it makes it very comfortable from a client base side as well.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess COVID changed a couple of things. So I'll enjoy that now.
Yeah.
But let's jump into the interview questions. Thank you for that background. So what are some common misconceptions about nutrition and eye health that you'd like to clarify?
So I feel like the biggest one that everyone always thinks of is carrots will change your vision. It will give you 20/20 vision. And although that's true, it's not the carrots itself. It's the fact that it has vitamin A in it. And there's so many different types of foods that are a more potent source than just carrots being in vitamin A. For example, liver is a really high source, dairy products like milk and cheese, or even egg yolk. So a lot of times, if someone is dieting and they're taking out the egg yolk of a whole natural egg, they're missing a lot of those key nutrients, and those are really important for eye health. So I always recommend a wide variety diet, because different components of different foods have those properties. So carrots improving your eye health is definitely a big factor, but it's not the only food to do that. And there is actually an upper limit with vitamin A that can cause toxicity. So if you're getting it from food first, that definitely will filter itself. But if you're taking large doses of multivitamins, or if you're pregnant, for example, these things are really important to be cautious of, because that will translate to the baby's health. And a lot of times people are taking vitamins unsolicited, and you would just want to be sure that you're getting blood work done. You're making sure that you're not having any weird symptoms like nausea or headaches that can actually maybe due to the supplements that you're taking. So
Wow, so I didn't know that. So having an overabundance of vitamin A in the body can lead to that nausea and headache,
yes,
whatever.
exactly. And even, in more extreme cases like abdominal pain, and there is a certain level of toxicity for it, which usually happens to babies or pregnant women, right? Because babies think about it, they're such a tiny little specimen. If you're giving them just a small, microdose of more of vitamin A, it can be very overwhelming to the body.
That makes sense. Wow, that is fascinating. That actually ties into some of the later questions as well. Um, so what are some common eye conditions that can be improved with a healthy diet?
So I feel like in the eye world, cataracts are one of the biggest, um, you know, challenges, or even like macular degeneration. So those two conditions can really be improved through certain specific nutrients, right? So, honing down on if you have your vitamin, you have your mineral, but now we want the specific nutrients of two particular ones in mind, which are lutein, and I really don't know how to pronounce it, but it's like zeanthionine, and these two nutrients are found in different types of vitamin C and vitamin E rich foods. Um, so there's been lots of different studies that lutein and zeanthionine actually reduce those chronic eye conditions, and people who incorporate them actively, which if you're having a wide variety diet, you'll get them naturally, will really have that lower risk for developing cataracts. So foods like dark leafy greens will help with that, and also vitamin C rich foods, which can be found in oranges, bell pepper. It really is a whole category of foods, but these two specific um, micronutrients will really help with that.
So would you say those two specific nutrients are the most important for maintaining good eye health?
I would say those two, along with, overarching vitamins like vitamin C, vitamin E, omega 3s are a big one as well, because you need that for the retinal function. And they've done studies that actually show preterm and full-term infants, suggesting if they get enough omega 3s, then later on in life, their visual development will be impacted. So in general, I feel like it's very known for brain health and anti-inflammation, but it really does go for the whole development of, your eye function, your brain function. That's why it's such a big stressor in going back to pregnancy and infancy. You need these as your ladder for everything else.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So, yeah, I know you've already touched on this as well in some of the previous questions, but it ties into what we're currently talking about. So some of the examples of foods that can include these nutrients or these vitamins, and or just in general foods that are particularly beneficial for eye health. I know you mentioned carrots,
Yes.
some dairy products. Anything else?
Definitely. So a lot of these foods tie back into the plant-based way of eating, and that's why it's been, I feel like, it has so much momentum at this point, because it really emphasizes whole natural foods. And if you're having dark leafy greens, berries, right, for antioxidants, like I said, that whole egg, or even nuts, right, legumes and nuts, these are great sources of vitamin E. And moving on to more of those animal-based products, fatty fish, right, for omega 3s, having the dairy products, and also things like whole grains, so brown rice and quinoa, because these, if you think about it, they're from the ground, right? They're being built with the soil. That is then going to translate into their properties. So I would say there's a combination of food, but making sure that you're focusing on vitamin E rich foods, vitamin C rich foods, even zinc, which you could get in the fatty fishes and oysters. Those are all great for protecting and the development of your eye health.
Amazing. So when you say plant-based, not necessarily vegetarian or vegan or even pescatarian, right, but just making sure you have those leafy greens and those plants at the base of your pyramid. Is that right?
Exactly. Almost like plant forward is what I like to say. So making sure that, your diet is as minimally as processed, coming from foods from the ground up, because that's what we're most connected to, and that's really long-term health, what's important.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So with that said, are there any foods that should be avoided or limited for optimal eye health?
I don't think there's one specific type of food, but if overall your diet is you're consuming highly processed food, right? Maybe your breakfast is boxed cereal, your lunch is whatever 7-Eleven has to offer, and your dinner is some Chinese takeout. So you're missing those pieces of those plant forward foods. So it's not one specific food that's going to make or break a diet. It's really the overarching picture and how your lifestyle is, honestly. So if you're the type of person who's always on the go and not making nutrition a priority, your eye health is going to suffer as a result of that, potentially.
I see. So then, for instance, somebody who loves their coffee in the morning, I would doubt 1 cup of coffee. It depends, but say like, I don't know, 7 or 8 cups of coffee, or maybe someone who likes to go out and drink a lot of alcohol. How would that affect eye
Yeah.
health?
So that's a great subject, especially being in New York. I see that all the time. So everyone is always keen on drinking 8 cups of coffee, and that's really not a concern. More of a concern is how is your hydration with that? Because alcohol and caffeine both can dehydrate the body because it's increasing that urine output. So the dehydration can then cause certain eye conditions or just having more blurry vision, right? And also, alcohol is known as technically a poison in the body, right? So it's depleting those minerals. It's depleting like thiamine, and that's can then cause later issues. So the idea with that is always balance, right? Everything always in moderation, because to a certain extent, it could cause dehydration, cause you to lose minerals, and then that could be right. So it's not causation necessarily, but it's correlation, right? Then it's correlating to now your vitamins are depleted, and that can cause the eye issues, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. That definitely makes sense. So, and I know you mentioned earlier, jumping back to a previous thing, but having too much vitamin A, I believe it was,
Mm-hmm.
with those dietary supplements. But are there any dietary supplements that you would recommend, or any vitamins to make sure you're getting enough of to improve or maintain eye health?
Yeah, so I always say food first, right? That's actually how your body is going to absorb the most amount of minerals, because that's what your body is bioavailable to. I saw like on a subway once, there was an advertisement for food is not enough, and it was an advertisement for supplements, which those all have a time and a place. But a lot of times, if you're just taking supplements, you're going to notice your urine is like neon green because you're just excreting everything your body doesn't need. And so I always say food first, because if you're just taking a bunch of supplements, you're just having expensive pee, because you're just, having all of that taken out of you. So really, when it comes to supplementation, and thinking of buying a vitamin that you see at the grocery store, get curious on why am I even taking this in the first place. Because if a doctor recommends vitamin E, which I've seen in the past, or vitamin D because your levels are deficient, right, based on actual blood work, then that has its time and its place, which a lot of people are missing, specific nutrients, and that's needed. But overall, trying to think of, even if the way I'm getting food first is by making a powerful, antioxidant rich smoothie, and I'm putting, spinach and berries in there to be my supplement in a way, that's still better than just like popping your generic brand of multivitamin that probably is not even being absorbed into you.
Interesting. So then, to have this food forward and plant forward approach, or a food focused approach, a lot of people, especially in New York City, are always on the go, very busy, grabbing things here and there, walking, eating at the same time. So what do you suggest to incorporate these more eye healthy foods, or these plant forward foods, into one's diet? And how do you, I guess, kind of tying this question, the last question together, but how do you make that sustainable, and how do you make sure that you are incorporating that? And what tips do you have for making sure that people are plant and food forward?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenging um, place to navigate as to how it fits into your lifestyle. And I see that all the time when people are literally walking with a pizza or a granola bar, and it's like, where do those 5 minutes of you just sitting down to eat something come in? And how can we make that realistic? Because people don't have time to plan what to eat, when to eat, how to eat, and the role of a dietitian is really to bridge that gap. So there's a few points I always like to preface. And the first being that you always want to think of, what can I be adding to my diet rather than taking away? Because you see now in a lot of mainstream culture, it's always like, you know, fad diets that are saying don't eat carbs, right? With the whole keto craze. It's like, well, then you're missing the whole grains category of making sure you're having like brown rice and quinoa, which are actually really important for eye health. So you always want to think, what can I be adding to my meal, rather than taking away? Making sure that if you're adding color, you're going to be adding more nutrients. You're going to be adding more vibrancy to your plate, to your life, and that's going to translate in your energy. Maybe give you more energy to meal prep a little bit. But I would say doable action steps are having half your plate always fruits and veggies, having that color component be a star on your show, and you could do that whether you're eating out or you're cooking in, right? Like going back to the Chinese takeaway food, for example, like just getting a side of steamed veggies, right? Having your cake and eating it too. You could be incorporating that because there's always options available. Even if it's a smoothie from like a fast casual place, well, at least that's a serving of fruits and vegetables into your day that you would have, rather than not have. So just trying to make sure you're getting color into your day and onto your plate, and making sure that you're having that variety of plant foods, and having them on hand really helps with that. So if you're not used to going grocery shopping and going in the produce aisle, try going there first, right? Try making your basket of cart as least packaged thing as possible, right? As least boxes and bags and more of those just raw natural foods. And a lot of times, like people don't even have the capacity to be cutting and washing and cleaning and prepping, and it's just a lot. And it's understandable. So, buying those items already pre-chopped, right? Cutting corners where you need to so that it's actually doable and sustainable. And whether you're buying fresh or frozen or canned, these options can be found anywhere, really. So I think it's just about creating that behavior, creating that understanding that color is important on my plate, and then having that translate throughout your day and what you do and what you eat.
Amazing. And just to clarify, when you say color, you mean the actual color of the food, right? Like just making sure that the plate looks colorful and that you have the yellows and the oranges and the reds, right?
Exactly. The quote goes back to like when you're a baby and they say, eat the rainbow, because it's true. That's what we should be taught and learn to do. And those colors have specific nutrients that our body needs. So,
wow, that's amazing. Eat the rainbow.
Yes.
Skittles commercial. But those are all the questions I have. But is there anything else you would like to add to this? Any other insight that you have about eye health or nutrition?
Yeah, I think diet is super important, but also the key factors of sleep and hydration. Okay, because if you're not sleeping enough, I think we've all had those moments where you wake up and you're like, I can't see, right, for a second. Like your eyesight is going to be affected, right, because you need that amount of sleep to have that brain function, that eye function, and also just making sure your eyes are hydrated. Our body is 70% water, so we need that. And just from what I've seen in my own experience, that water is important, right? A lot of people don't think about having water with you at all times, but it's super important to making sure that you're sleeping enough, you're drinking enough water, you're eating your fruits and veggies, like basic foundational things that will really translate to your life and your health.
So would you say keeping your eyes hydrated starts once again from that food forward, ingesting the water instead of maybe putting those hydration drops in your eyes?
Exactly. And like,
still great, but
yes, exactly. If you're noticing a constant reoccurring thing of like, my eyes are always so dry, it's like, instead of trying to find that Band-Aid solution of like, let me go to the drugstore and get eye drops, it's like, well, what are you actually doing? Like, are you even remembering to have a cup of water a day first? Because the Band-Aid is not gonna help over time. And really thinking of what's the foundation is movement, food, right? Hydration, sleep, stress, those are all deep-rooted factors that will then translate into your day-to-day.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's so insightful. Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, those are all my questions, and I just really appreciate your time. And sorry, my notifications are ones. But this was just super insightful, and we should have the blog post. We'll send it over to you to make sure that you approve of everything in it, and we'll be in contact with that if you have nothing else to add.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was amazing, and I'm so glad that we had the opportunity to do this today, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. We'll be in contact soon, Limor.
Okay, for
Thank
sure.
you.
Have
Bye.
a good rest of your day.
You too. Bye.